Hey everybody, it's July 25th, 2016. Down here this evening, the original plan was I was going to work on the outboard motor project, and I want to charge a battery, and forgot to put the battery on the charger earlier today, so try and do a fast charge. We'll see if that works out. If it does, then I'll be starting another episode of the Mercury Tower of Power tonight, and if it doesn't, well, I guess I don't know, maybe I'll clean up around here. But for right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a flea market find series. I'm going to cover a couple of items I picked up here and there. A couple items I picked up at the QVEA, that's the Quabog Valley Engineers Association flea market and tractor show. You have 3 shows a year in Colchester, Connecticut, and this was the July show. The spring show, we had some rain, kind of kept things, it wasn't really that great because of the rain. Kind of a hit or miss, didn't really make any killer scores there. And this show, the heat was the issue. I went there, got there first thing in the morning. Seems like I keep trying to get there at the opening, and I still seem to pass a lot of guys walking out with killer deals already when I'm to bring them to their car or truck when I get there. So I don't know, I guess I gotta get up real early. It's about just a hair over a 1-hour drive from here. So anyways, I also got a couple of tool store finds. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with an item that I'm going to be using real soon. And this was actually the what I've come to call the junk store downtown. It's a used item store. He's got antiques and collectibles and then just regular stuff in there too. And he's got a little area in the back with tools in there. Almost never is any tools in there that I would care about. But a while back I had spotted this old timing light, and I thought, well, maybe at some point I'd want a timing light for, maybe setting timing on one of the old tractors or something like that. And I hadn't gotten around to buying one, and then more recently I was working on the outboard, and I had recently gotten a book from the library on servicing these old outboards, and there was information in there on this model in particular that I've been working on, and it says that timing light is what you want to use. So I decided to spring. He had $5 on it, so I decided to spring $5 for this timing light. It's actually looks like a pretty decent one. So the thing with this timing light is it actually says it's got some patent numbers over here, and then on this side over here it says made in the USA. Up here it just says DC power timing light, and that is it. I cannot find any markings on this thing anywhere to indicate who makes this thing. So it's kind of interesting. It's definitely an early one. The one thing I don't like about it is it's got the way that it interfaces is you have to take off your spark plug lead and snap this onto where your spark plug is, and then clip your spark plug lead onto this. I prefer the type that has the what they call an inductive coupler, which is kind of like just a snap thing that you can just clip around the wire, and it inductively picks up that high tension pulse and triggers the light. But for $5, if it's a working light, and one of the provisos was, I know the guy, I've bought stuff from him before, one of the provisos was that I'd give him the full $5 asking price, provided that if it does not work, I can bring it back. I only found a couple of vendors that had machinist. One of the guys who has machinist tools, he's got quite a decent assortment of stuff there, but he's always priced. He's right up there at the internet prices. If you need something, and then that's all fine and dandy, that you're paying basically eBay prices, but you've got the thing right in front of you, and you can hold it in your hand and see the condition and not have to wait for a shipment or something like that. Other than that, though, I just assume hold out. There's nothing that I can think of that I need so badly that I need to pay those kind of prices. Occasionally I'll flirt with the idea of buying something, and You know, maybe if for some unusual reason you catch a deal here or there. But for the most part, I'm looking for the really good deals. The kind of deals that are so good that they'll cause me to buy things that I already have. And case in point, this particular vendor, he had quite a few items. I put together a pile of stuff at one vendor, and one of the things was there was a last word indicator, which I already have a couple of those. I have a couple that are in rougher condition out of the case, and then I have one or two that are in the case with all of the parts, all the trimmings and everything. And so it was a pretty decent condition, even though it was out of the case with none of the accessories. So I asked him, I said, well, what do you want for this whole pile? And he said $30. And I don't even remember what else was in there, but I was like, boy, I didn't see where the money was in it. So I took the last word indicator out, figuring that that's what he was, placing a high value on. And I said, how much now? And he said $30. So I put everything back, wished him a good day, and went on my way. Came to another dealer, did a similar thing there, put a pile together. He was more reasonable. Some of the items I just realized that I had multiples of them. They weren't quite that nothing to really get excited over. So in the end, I only ended up buying these two items because these right here are Starrett number S579G telescopic gauges, and the snap's not broken, which often lots of times you find these in the cases torn. The case is in great shape. All of the gauges are there. Strangely, for some reason, this one gauge right here has a little bit of surface rust on it. Just this one gauge, whereas all the other ones are clean as a whistle. Other than that, though, it's in great shape, and $8 is a good price for it, and he took $5 for it. On top of that, he came down to $5. Basically, I got these two items for $10, and this other item here, he had $5 on it already, which is a steal for a machinery's handbook. This happens to be the 22nd edition. Now, I remember when I bought my first one, and then I got a good deal on the first one, and then I bought a lot of stuff from an estate, and I included a book that they had there in that lot, so I ended up getting that cheap. And my thinking was, well, it might be a newer edition than what I had, but the problem is I can never seem to remember what edition I had already in the shop, so I ended up buying, I don't remember which of these came first, but that's why I ended up having these two. And then I couldn't remember what edition the newest one was, so when I saw this one for the $5, and it was the 22nd edition, something made me think that this was newer than any of the ones I had. Well, it turns out I did have a 24th edition. The other thing, too, is I keep finding the machinery's handbook, and I believe there's another one called the machinist's handbook, which I guess is another popular series. I haven't run into one of those yet. So this one, even though I just got it, I'm probably going to end up doing something else with it. It's in good shape. Pages have been heavily rifled through over the years, but it's still, the binding's got this crease in it. But overall, it's still a very usable book. And even in this condition, these will trade for $15 to $25 on the bay. So, let's see. I've got one of these in each one of my machinist toolbox, so I guess this one's going to have to just go somewhere else for the time being. So my son and I, we walked around, poked through bins, and looked at stuff. When we first got there, we went through, and then I think maybe like on the second time or third time around, we saw a vendor who was set up, and he just had like a couple of folding tables and nothing else. And he was kind of off to the side quite a ways. So from a distance, I didn't see anything that looked that exciting. He actually had some just like antique stuff, and it didn't look like he had a lot of tools there. But I decided take a walk over there and check out what he had. And he had 2 tables set up, and one of the tables was almost empty. And the other table, he had like half the table, he had a sign saying $1. And on the other half of the table, he had a sign saying $5. So basically, everything on one side of the table was $1 a piece, and everything on the other side was $5 a piece. I spotted a couple of items, and I was actually procrastinating and you know, hemming and hawing on whether or not I wanted to bother taking the 2 pieces. Then finally, I decided. Well, it was funny. We were talking, and I did the math real quick on how many items he had on the table, and I said, "Geez," I said, "if you don't mind me saying so, it doesn't look like you've got enough items here to sell to pay for your spot for the day." And he said, "Yeah, $23." He says, "I gotta sell $23 more worth of stuff." And he explained to me that basically he was cleaning out a place and he just needed to get rid of some stuff. So they kind of had a really relaxed attitude about whether or not they sold, got any money for the stuff. And that's why the prices were so cheap. So I spotted this old brass, looked old, and I've researched it since I got home. What I ended up getting a brass lantern that came off of a ship's mast. It was made by a company. I can't remember the name of it. It was the something Marine Hardware Company of Brooklyn, New York. And so I already did the research on it. Somebody had electrified it because they were using it as a porch light hanging outside their house. But it's actually still in excellent original condition. The brass needs to be shined up. The original lens is in it and it's not broken. You know what? I'll give a quick look at that. I'll go upstairs and get that. Just give a quick look before the series is over here. So the other item, which again I was like, do I really need this thing? But it just kind of caught my eye, and I said, well, I was curious about it. This is I guess it's a grinder. Okay. It's a heavy duty sucker. Yeah, it's a grinder. And this is called the Thor, as in like, Hammer of the Gods, Thor. Silver line grinder. 5-inch heavy duty. Okay. So it's got an arbor here that looks like it's made to hold a grinding wheel, and that this washer is actually on upside down. But so I guess we would take this nut off, and there was probably originally a Tommy bar or a little, some kind of a wrench that went in here and grabbed this thing so you could tighten down on it. And so you put a grinding wheel in there, and then I don't see where the handle would have went on this thing, so I'm thinking maybe you just held it like this and ground by hand. I'm wondering whether or not there was some kind of a guard that originally clamped onto this section right here and has long since gone missing. So he claimed that this worked, and I had to take his word for it because there was no electricity in sight to plug in and test it. So this is always a fun part of my dealings when I get these kind of things home and I get to plug them in for the first time and see. And we even were joking around with each other about the fact that it's got this wonderful electrical job here. Somebody replaced this cord, the original cord, a while back, and they didn't bother putting a strain relief or anything on here, so you just got the wires just kind of loose in here. So over time they can rub through the insulation, and then if the hot wire's touching the case and you're holding this and you ground yourself, you get yourself a nice zing. Get a little bit of extra bang for your buck, so to speak. Alright, so first things first. Alright, well, didn't trip the breaker here in the shop. This outlet that I'm plugging into is actually the same circuit as the shop lights, so if it trips the breaker, it's going to plunge me into darkness. I'm going to grab a couple of I'm going to grab some gloves just in case there is a short in the case. Oh, that sounds horrible. Loud. Nasty bearing noises in that thing. That's going to need some attention. That's so loud that I think I'm going to want to put hearing protection on before I hold that trigger. Alright, put these headphones on, these hearing protection on. Yeah, that poor thing needs some attention. So the way I figure it, all I gotta do, take this apart, maybe replace a bearing or two, re-grease the whole front area here, and when I get done, oh, and put a new cord on it, and when I get done, I'll probably have a grinder that I paid $5 for that's worth, oh, I don't know, $6? So anyways, here's the particulars on this sucker. This is a 4500 RPM grinder, 115 volt, 6 amp. Looks like it's a model number. Well, that's a serial number. It's got a code, says EL62. I actually looked these up online. I did find a couple from this company. I didn't find one exactly like this. And you know, it's actually a decent little grinder if you need one like that. I was actually toying with the idea when I bought this thing. I was already thinking to myself, what am I going to use this for? I was thinking of maybe putting a cutoff wheel on here and just having it as a quick, for cutting off a bolt or something like that, maybe. But I do have an oil port here, but that's not where the noise is coming from. The noise is coming from right up in here. It actually does say something on the side, too. Oh, okay. This is the Thor Power Tool Company of Aurora, Illinois made this sucker. Maybe do a quick little series on running through this thing. You know, taking it apart, cleaning it up, doing a little TLC to it. But that'll be something, that'll have to be a rainy day project. I thought I was done with buying large rusty drill bits, but I came across a vendor who I was picking through a box, and I saw this drill bit and I saw this one, and I almost just put them right back down, didn't even bother asking, because I was like, I don't need really any more drill bits at this point. But I thought, you know, this one looks like this straight shank one here look like it's got a really keen, good looking edge on it still. I think it would clean up nice. The surface rust doesn't look like it's too big of a deal on it. I forgot what size I ended up finding on this thing. This is a 27/32 by Cleforge, which that might have been associated with the Cleveland Twist Drill Company. I'm not sure, or Cleforge might just be its own company. I don't know. And then there's this Morse taper, and this is a 4-flute drill bit. Okay, and I have a few of these, but not a lot. And again, you know, I was like, didn't really care too much about it. This one is a 15/16. This is a Morse of New Bedford, Massachusetts, high-speed steel drill, 4-fluter. But when I asked the guy what he wanted for the 2 drill bits, he said $1 for the pair. So 50 cents a piece. Yeah, okay, that's enough to make me buy 2 more drill bits. So I'm walking around, and I'm going, like, on the second time around, I stop at one of the vendors, and I see something on his table that I've never seen before, and catches my eye, and I'm looking at it, trying to figure out what the story is behind this thing, because it just doesn't look right to me. And you know, when I started talking to the guy about it, I told him what I thought it was supposed to be, and he said, no, that's not what it is. And he told me exactly what he claims it is, or claimed it was. And I'm looking at the thing, and you know, it's got me intrigued. And then I said, well, what are you asking for it? And he says, I see him on eBay for $200 or more, so I gotta get $50 for it. So I put it back down and ended up walking away. And then we were leaving, and this guy was set up. He was set up right near where the way back to the parking lot was. So here I am lugging my heavy $5 Thor grinder by, and I'm coming by this guy's table again, and I figure, you know, I'm going to hit this guy with a low ball offer on this thing, well, kind of low ball, $30, and see if he goes for it. And he did. His partner was there. Had to get him on the walkie-talkie and get a hold of him. And then the guy came over and, you know, he said, yeah, all right. So this is what I ended up getting, another grinder. But this is a horse of a different color. This thing is funky. So, what this says on it right here is this says this is the precise grinder. I'm not kidding you, that's the name. This is the Precise Products Corporation of Racine, Wisconsin. Okay. Let me give you the specs on this thing, because this is gonna you guys are gonna love this. 120 volt, 25 to 60 cycles, AC or DC, 5.6 amps, 600 watts. It's a type number 61, and then there's looks like there's a serial number on there. No, this is the type is a Super 60. That's what it is. So that's the model number. It is a 1/2 horsepower, but here's the ticket. This is RPM, 45,000 RPM. 45,000 RPM. So somebody's got a burr on it right now that looks practically brand new. I do have the original, well, what looks like the original wrench, because it fits perfectly right here in this collet. Little wrench, because he had the wrench with it. So I went online and checked these out, and sure enough, these are actually what they are. They are actually a hand grinder, if you can believe it. The reason why I was so flummoxed by this thing is because of this weird whole section up here that looks to me like, because it's so precision machined, it almost looks like a quill. So to me, it looks like it should be clamped in something. So I was thinking that this was part of, like, maybe a grinding attachment for some other large machine, like a lathe or something like that, and that this would actually sit in, you know, a support block, and then you could put a grinding wheel in there. And I mean, I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, why couldn't you make one hell of a grinder for your lathe with this thing? A tool post grinder. That's, I couldn't think of the terminology. You could make a hell of a tool post grinder with this thing. It wouldn't be too hard to machine up a couple of clamping blocks to hold this, you know. So anyways, these are apparently quite expensive. I did find a few on eBay, and again, no electricity to test it. Again, a cord that has some things to be desired here. I don't know what's going on underneath all of this tape, but I'm pretty sure that cord is skunked. No power to test it, had to take his word for it. This is an interesting deal here. Check this out. Look at this plug. Out of the back of the plug, there's actually a ground wire with a threaded end on it. I don't know what the heck deal is here with this. Does anybody have any idea what this is all about? I thought it was a ground wire. I could be wrong on that. This just is a quick disconnect. I don't get it. Alright, so the same deal on this one. The startup torque on this thing must be tremendous. I can't tell if the switch is off or on. So I don't know what's going to happen when I fire this thing up.
So let me try and put it in real quick. Okay, nothing happened. All right, so the switch, either the switch is off or this thing doesn't work at all. Same precautions as I did with the last one. I'm going to don some gloves and some hearing protection. Wish me luck. That actually sounds better than the Thor grinder. Oh, that's cooking right along. I wonder if I have a tachometer that goes that high.